So we are at the hour here. We've got 21 people. I assume people will continue to trickle in for the next 5, 10, 15, 60 minutes. I don't know. So just kind of a little housekeeping here. I'm Kyle. I'm from HubSpot Academy. I'm going to kind of be playing host. I know some about custom code, but my knowledge is not nearly as deep as my other two friends here, Jack and Connor. We want this session to be question driven. So please locate that Q&A box. You should see a button somewhere that says Q&A. As those questions come in, I'll be monitoring those. We'll be grabbing them. We'll answer as many as we can. Everything related to Operations Hub and specifically custom coding is fair game. If you're wondering if a use case would work, or if you want to hear us brainstorm how to do a particular use case, we're happy to make stuff up on the fly. We're really excited to work with you on this, figure out how you want to use this new tool. Custom code actions in workflow is maybe the most powerful thing HubSpot has ever released, certainly the most flexible. We have given you basically the ability to build whatever you want inside a workflow. And so if you can think of it, we will do our best to figure out how to turn it into cohesive next steps for you. It's still ticking up. I don't know at what point exactly to jump in here. Jack, Connor, you want to just introduce yourselves real quick, and then we'll oh, wait, question from Andrew here. Do you have to have enterprise to use this functionality? No. So custom code is in the professional tier of Operations Hub. So you do have to have Operations Hub. Operations Hub actually does not have an enterprise tier at this point. But if you have Operations Hub Professional, you get custom code actions in workflows, and then also data formatting action that has just some standard ways of cleaning up your data. Jack, how about you introduce yourself?
Yep, so my name is Jack Coldrick. I am a solutions engineer working out of the Dublin office. So I'm from Dublin, Ireland. Been in HubSpot about 4.5 years. Spent most of that time on the services team, actually, as a technical consultant, working with people integrating with the tools. So a lot of hands-on experience with HubSpot, and I'm now working pre-sale as a solution engineer. And yeah, I just kind of help people to find creative ways to use HubSpot and help to really architect those solutions.
Awesome. And Connor, you want to tell us a bit about you?
Absolutely. I'm Connor. I run Aptitude. We're a diamond partner, soon to be elite, I think. We're focused on a lot of custom integration, custom deployments, helping people get the most out of their HubSpot environment. So doing similar work with Jack, but sort of post-sale. So after someone has HubSpot, we help you build a lot of these solutions out. So excited to hear if you guys have specific use cases, items you guys would sort of like us to think through how we would build. We'll do some live mock-ups and solutions design, and Jack and Kyle and myself will collaborate on how we think you could build that thing. And if you guys need direct help building it, feel free to shoot me a note, or we're just happy to point you guys in the right direction and hopefully get you started on all the cool stuff you can do with coded actions.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to go ahead and get started for real now. Thank you all. We've got about 41 people here. I would love if you could just weigh in the chat real quick. Rate yourself your level of comfort with coding and JavaScript and creating stuff in this sort of format. If you are new to it, you don't even know really what JavaScript is, give yourself a 1, and we'll go on a scale of 5. If you are like you dream in JavaScript at night, that would be like a 5. Just drop those into chat here. Seeing some 1s and 2s, 3.5, 2.5. You were all very precise. 3.5, 2.5, 4+. Excited to see that. Lots of 3s and 4s. So I would say we're in the upper half here. For any of you that are in that 1 and 2 category, I want you to know you will see some code today. We will talk about it. We don't want that to intimidate you. If you feel a little lost at any point, please just stick with us. Feel free to ask any questions. We're here to explain whatever we can. Please, if you have questions, use cases you would like to see, or just questions about how the tool works or how to use it, drop those in the Q&A. We've got one in there already. I'm thankful for that. We will get to it. But just kind of to get your gears turning, Jack is going to show us a use case he's built out. And then we will spend the rest of this time just answering your questions in the Q&A.
Great. I suppose I'll share my screen and jump straight in. So hopefully in a moment, everybody should see my screen loading up there. You should see a landing page, sign up to a referral program. So I guess what I wanted to run through today was one of the ways that I've used Operations Hub in conjunction with the marketing tools that HubSpot offer to build out a fully functioning referral program. And I'm going to walk you through this from end to end. And to be honest, the reason I focused on this was that it comes up a lot in my day-to-day with people asking how this may work and how they may run these on HubSpot. And I also felt that it was a really tangible use case that showed the real value and the power of Operations Hub, because fundamentally, that's really what's making all of this work behind the scenes. Now, the first thing that we're looking at here, obviously, is our landing page. So you can see I've gone ahead and I've built out a landing page. It's showing the benefits of signing up to a referral program. You're trying to promote interactions with your platform. You're trying to give people incentive to refer their friends and ultimately grow your install base. And you can see most importantly down here, when someone wants to join the referral program, they're going to be submitting this form. And that's really the first interaction someone is going to have with your business who's looking to get involved in this aspect. Now, all of what you see here, firstly, was just built using the HubSpot landing page editor. For full transparency, I'm just going to jump in and show you that as well. I've got my landing page set up. It's a part of our marketing tools. It's drag and drop, easy to use. I've built out this page and I've added a form here on the bottom. And this form, if I jump in, is a fairly standard form. This is the HubSpot Forms tool. I've added a first name, a last name, and an email field. I could add any other properties that I would like to capture if I so chose to. In this instance, I'm keeping it very light and concise. And the idea here is that if somebody fills in that form, we want to generate a referral code for them and send that to them. So we say, thanks for signing up, Jack, to the referral program. We really appreciate you getting on board. This is your referral code. This is your referral link. Share it with your friends and family, and we will give you all of these great rewards based on how much business you refer to us. And in order to make that happen, what we need is a workflow. Now, this is a contact workflow. Workflows are HubSpot's automation tool. They extend throughout all of the different hubs that we supply. So, you can automate your marketing processes, your sales processes, your services processes, both internally and externally. In this case, I'm actually using it on both spectrums. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, right, well, if anybody fills in that referral form, so if somebody signs up and they want to become a referrer, I want this workflow to trigger. So they arrive into the workflow and in they come. And again, you can customize this enrollment criteria as specifically as you like. If you click on this box, you'll actually see that you've all of the data within the CRM to leverage here. I've just gone with a form submission as an example. Now, you'll also notice here, we come to an action, custom coded action. And this is where Operations Hub enters into the fray. So the purposes of this custom coded action is to generate a unique number that I can assign to this individual who has just submitted the form. And then obviously we're going to continue in the workflow and send them out an email with that link and that unique number. Now, just for a second, I'm going to jump in to this custom coded action to show you a little bit of what that looks like. For anyone who isn't maybe as proficient in JavaScript as others out there, as Kyle said, please do not be intimidated, but I do just want to show you this at all levels. So I'm going to click in here. You can see as soon as I click in, a little sidebar pops out, and it's from within here that I can build out my own bespoke logic that I want to run in this context. So for anyone out there, maybe on the technical side, what we're doing here is we are writing our own JavaScript code in a Node.js runtime environment, which basically just allows you to run JavaScript outside of your browser effectively on the server side. And what this code actually does, if I open that up in the full page editor, it's probably a little bit hard to see. Apologies, I can zoom in a little bit there. What this code actually does is as follows. So when you're building out these custom coded actions, the first thing you want to do up on line 1 is you want to import the necessary libraries to do whatever it is that you're looking to do. In this case, I'm just going to be using the HubSpot APIs because I'm going to be maybe pulling data out for the enrolled contact. I could be updating a contact. I could be searching for information in the CRM. But more importantly, from line 2 right down to line 24, we have what's known as our exports.main function. And really all this is a function that the logic within is called when our custom code action is executed. So everything that I'm highlighting here is executed when the contact gets to this stage in the workflow itself. There's a couple of things we're doing in here. The first thing here on line number 6 is we're creating a HubSpot client so that we can make API calls to the HubSpot API. You'll then see what we're doing here is we are making a request to the HubSpot CRM to get the currently enrolled contact using their ID. And then within here, we're going to do some information or do some logic based on that. Now, all I'm doing in this case is I'm generating a number. I'm using a math.floor, which, to be quite honest with you, isn't truly unique. There is an occurrence here where you might actually end up with duplicate numbers, but there are a whole load of ways to create unique numbers. Some people will use a timestamp at the time the action executed. There's another library, the name escapes me now, which we support. In actual fact, I can I'll just pull it in here. There is a library here. I think it's random number C-Spring, which is a library that can be used to generate random numbers as well. But in any event, for the purposes of this, what we're doing is just creating an ID. And what we're then doing is, you'll see that we have a callback object. And this is how we give some information back to the workflow so that we can update a contact property or do some sort of if-then logic. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm saying whatever random number I generate, I'm going to pass it back to the workflow. And if I go back a step now, if I go back a step here to the workflow again, that's our custom code action. It's done its job. It's created that random number. What we're doing now is we're basically copying that random number that was generated into a contact property called the referrer ID. So that's Jack's referrer ID that he can use moving forward. And then most importantly, we need to let Jack know what that is. So we're just sending him an email that will contain that referrer ID. Now, if we take a look at the email that Jack is going to get, again, this is just HubSpot's email editor. It's drag and drop, very easy to use. You'll notice that we've got a bit of personalization going on. So I'm outputting his first name. I've also said your referrer ID is, and I'm outputting the referrer ID. And you'll also see here, if I zoom in a little bit, I'm giving him his own referral link. So the way I'm doing this is that I've built out a sign-up page or whatever page in your website you want to send people to. And I'm just including his referrer ID at the end as a URL parameter. And we'll actually look at why this is important in a moment, because HubSpot will be able to read that value in. We'll take a look at that shortly. But this email, very simple. It's just personalized based on the information that workflow has just generated. Now, what we'll also see within the HubSpot CRM at this point is Jack Coldrick here. We see that he has received that market email with his referral link. And on the left-hand side, you'll actually see some properties in here. So we've got a referrer ID. So we can see that his referrer ID is 221. That's his unique code that he can share with his friends. You'll have to excuse this property. This is designed for anyone that he refers will actually hold that number. So if he sends 10 of his friends into HubSpot, their referrer will have Jack's ID, and we'll be looking at how we can attribute that back to Jack originally. We can see how many referrals he has given us, and we can see the last time that he referred customers to us. So all of this information is captured on Jack's record. Now, the next part of this, obviously, is that Jack has now got his code and he wants to go out and start sharing that with people and hopefully get them to sign up for whatever it is that your business does or whatever it's offering. So he may choose to actually share that link, which you can see in the URL here, with his friends or family. And when one of those friends or family click on that link, you see they come through to a page, and you'll actually notice, now I'm showing this on purpose, but in reality, this would be a hidden field. You can see that the referrer ID is actually captured there in the form. So when this form is submitted and a contact is created, we're going to capture their first name, their last name, and their email, but we're also going to know who actually referred them. So someone is going to come along here and fill out this form. Just worth noting as well, you'll see this referral ID. If I was to change the number up here to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC, you'll actually see the field here and the form updates as well. And this is just functionality that HubSpot has inbuilt. HubSpot is able to, so long as there's a property in the CRM that matches the name of what's shown in the URL, we can actually dynamically pull in that information. So in this case, we're using it for a referrer ID, but in reality, this could be used for, maybe you've got specific product links and you want to maybe store the product name as a hidden field against a contact. There's loads of ways you can leverage this, but it's a handy thing to keep in mind. Now, the form itself as well, as I said, if we just take a quick look, we've got our first name, our last name, our email, we've got that referrer field. Now, in reality, as I said, what you'd probably be doing is hiding that field so that your people that are converting don't necessarily see this obscure number that maybe doesn't make any sense to them. But I wanted to show it here for the purposes of this walkthrough. So the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to have another workflow that is triggered. So when somebody is created in the CRM, and when we know that they have been referred by somebody, so that referrer property has a value, we actually want to do something. So what do we want to do? We want to look at that referrer ID. We want to see if there's a contact in the CRM that matches that referrer ID so that we can say, we can attribute this conversion to that individual. So again, we're looking at Operations Hub here, and the custom code that's responsible for making all of this happen looks a little bit like this. Now, I'm not going to go through it line for line, but really the most important thing that we're doing is we're basically, we're getting the referrer ID of the contact that has just converted. And then what we're doing is we're going to search the CRM to find a matching contact with that referrer ID so that we can say, right, well, Kyle has been referred by this contact. Now, once we get that information back, what we're then actually able to do is we can actually update the total referral property for that individual. And we can also update the time at which the last referral came in. So we're using the HubSpot API to update those properties within here. And the output of that then is, I suppose if we go back to Jack here, is as you can see, anyone who's going through, the total referral field will update as and when he refers new business, and the referral date will also update as and when he refers new business. And where this gets also very interesting is that what you can then do, if I was to maybe jump into my workflows tool, is you can kind of use this as well to kind of promote your referral program. So I should hopefully have, I've got a couple of them here. What we can then do is, as Jack is referring people in and doing his thing, you'll see that we've got a series of workflows here that are set up. So if he's referred 8 people, we kind of send him a nudge to say 2 more people and you're going to get a really cool reward. You can get as creative as you like with this. Or alternatively, what we can do here as well is that anytime a referral comes through, we'll send Jack a thank you message to say, thanks for referring X, Y, or Z. You could also do this with the time of the last referral. Maybe he hasn't referred anyone in a week or 2 weeks. So we maybe want to just reach out and see if he's okay or if anything's happening. So this is really just showing how Operations Hub can kind of sit behind the scenes and handle the lookups and the management of data. But ultimately on the front end, we've got a nice seamless referral program that is promoting engagement from your customers and hopefully driving additional leads to your website and additional business. And if you'd like as well, we've obviously run through this, but if you guys want as well, I've actually documented all of this in an article, which is effectively just an entire walkthrough end to end of the exact steps in a lot of detail that I went through to create this. So we can maybe share this in the link or in the chat window, so you guys can maybe bookmark that or check it out. But in essence, it just goes through everything we've looked at there. It talks about the properties we need and why we need them. It talks about how we create those forms and why we create them that way. And it runs through the actual, I suppose, the operation hub, the operational side of it, where we have our custom coded action doing the thing that it was designed to do. So everything that I've just shown you is documented here in a nice kind of walkthrough style article. So we'll make sure to share that with you. But I hope that sort of sheds a little bit of light on how Operations Hub can be used to leverage HubSpot's APIs to do various things, but also can be used in conjunction with the other tools that we offer to build out, interesting flows like this. So I think at this point, I'll probably pause and hand it back over to Kyle and Connor.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jack. That is fantastic. And I learned some stuff there. I did not know the trick with the URL in forms. That opens up a lot of possibilities, especially with custom code being able to populate some of that stuff. I think it's awesome. We have gotten quite a few questions in the Q&A here. Connor has tagged a couple of them. I just want to answer one or two that are really short. Karina, hello, welcome, good to see you. Do you anticipate there being some kind of forum where developers can add code that can be used for the common or general use cases, so low coders can basically copy paste? Yes, that is something we've been talking about since before this launched. A fun fact, peek behind the curtain, when we had this tool in beta, we asked people, what are you using it for? So we can create this repository of common code things. And everybody was like, oh, we use it to capitalize names. We use it to format dates. And so we created the data format action to do those things. And that kind of obliterated our little pool of custom code examples. So as we get more intelligence on what common use cases are, what core code snippets would be useful, we'll definitely be collecting those and publishing them. The tool is still very young, not a lot of trends coming out of custom code yet, but as we know them, we will share them. Connor, you want to go ahead? I think that was the only short, easy.
I have a couple of these that I'm excited to talk about. So I'm going to do them in order they were submitted. And if you have additional use cases or questions you guys want to talk about, feel free to submit them, and we'll do our best to speak to each one. So one of the first ones from Michael Dodd here is, how do I send automated emails if someone signs up for my software? So how does HubSpot connect to the application and send emails based on triggers? And some examples that Michael gave were sign up but no action in the app, sign up and action in the app, 30 days of inactivity, etc. So I have both a non-Operations Hub answer for you, and then ways that you could maybe use Operations Hub as well. So we do these types of projects really frequently of integrating with external applications. And if you're able to, from your software application, push information to the HubSpot APIs, you may not need Operations Hub at all. So a lot of what you're talking about is really standard Marketing Hub functionality, which is to kind of use a workflow in HubSpot that reads off of contact properties. I'd also recommend taking a look at the new behavioral events. Beta is incredibly cool. You can do amazing things with it, and makes it really, really easy for your developers, because all they need to do is hit an endpoint versus really like understand the contact and CRM API. That being said, there is a way that you could do this with Operations Hub and do some cool things. So I'll do a brief screen share here. I'm hoping this works. Last time I did this had issues. Can we see Lucid Chart right now?
We can indeed, yeah.
Sure can.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So for this example, I'll go through like a couple of steps, and I'll just sort of like mock up a workflow. So in this situation, this could be sort of like your contact nurture workflow. So whatever your enrollment criteria you want to have here, which could be they submitted the sign up form for our app, could be your enrollment criteria. And then what you could do is for each custom coded action, you could have a custom coded action that would actually go out and ping your application. So you could write the code inside of this workflow. It could go to your application if you have endpoints based off of user data. So one example could be, whether it's specific actions in the app, or whether you just want to return, last login, last update, last something to that effect. Your coded action could go and fetch this information, and then it could both query your app, as well as it could then update the contact that was enrolled in this workflow. So this would then go and update the contact that was enrolled. And then you could do if then criteria here. So then you could make a decision on, okay, if this person has logged into the app in the last 30 days, I want to send them a welcome email. And if they have not logged into this app in the last 30 days, I want to actually like nudge them to log back in. And you could use a coded action to go and get that information from your application. And you could use this same architecture to grab information from any other type of tool as well. So this wouldn't necessarily be ingesting everything from your app. In order to do that, you'd probably want to work directly with the HubSpot APIs and update your app itself. But this could go and take a contact, and as if your API supported it, grab a record, find out its fields and information, and then pull it back in and do native if-then functions inside of a HubSpot workflow to sort of route those decision points, so you can decide how you want to engage with that person. I have another one here, which is a really, really good Operations Hub example. So from Dave Maxwell, his use case was syncing a deal object over time between HubSpot and MS SQL. And so his examples were once the deal is won, when we need to do delivery, when we need to install, when we need to do service. This is an awesome Operations Hub example, because what you could do here is simply create a deal workflow. So this is just a developer portal that we have. If you create a deal workflow, so this would be your sample Operations Hub deal. And your enrollment criteria would just be whenever you want to update your SQL database. metrics. So if you have this, so your deals, maybe you want your deal stage. So you had an example here for, is one. So if you did is closed one, you could then do a coded action right inside of your workflow to go and update your SQL database from here. And so this would be taking that every time a deal goes to closed one, we would be going and updating another system. And then by storing that HubSpot ID in that other system, you can also then find that same deal each time and then update that same deal. And you could even get back an ID from the other system as well. So something we've done once or twice is actually like have those databases, and by storing the ID in the other system, then you can sort of reference back to HubSpot also, versus like copy pasting or other business processes that rely on multiple systems to interconnect. I can keep going, or Kyle and Jack, if you guys want to interject at any time, please do, or I'll just monopolize all of the airspace.
No, you're doing great. One thing I did want to hop in here with, let me just, I'm going to drop into the chat. I'll make sure everybody can see it. This is our knowledge doc for custom code. It will not, I mean, if you don't, it's very short. But the thing I want to call your attention to is down at the bottom, there's a list of supported libraries. And so for some of the things Connor's talking about, we have supported libraries that do things like, HTTP requests. We have supported libraries that do a lot of like data structuring and modeling. And so like, it's just useful if you know what these are. If you don't know what they are, you can click on them and find out what they are. And it's kind of a fun discovery journey. But just some of these things, like you'll just need to use these libraries, and then you can tap into any API, whether it's your own private system, your app you've created, or like a third-party system that has a documented API. You can pretty much access anything you need to through a custom code action. You just so yeah, I just want to call that out. You don't have to figure out how to write manually in JavaScript an HTTP request. We have libraries that will do that for you. You just got to pull them in. So that's worth being aware.
Cool. I have two from Andrew Pell. One's just a yes answer. The other one might be a little bit more robust. But Andrew's question was, in this custom code, could you say update fields in HubDB? Yes, you could go and sort of hit a HubDB API. You could add a row to HubDB. You could update a record in HubDB. Anything that the HubDB API is going to support, you can interact with from that coded action. So lots of very cool things you can do there. I know prior to some of the CMS, CRM object widgets that you could do, where now you can expose CRM data natively into a CMS site, we were doing some things where you would move data into like a HubDB so that you could expose it to onto the website from the CRM. But whatever you're using HubDB for, you could use, as long as you can trigger a workflow, you could then auto go and update information inside of the HubDB table as well. And then another one that Andrew asked was, does the workflow only work on form submits, or could it be called if a link was clicked to run code? Yeah, you can anything you can invoke a workflow with inside of HubSpot, you can trigger a coded action on. So I think in this example that you just described, and I might need Kyle or Jack to point me in the right direction, but there's you would probably do like contact has viewed page or clicked link.
I guess you could, yeah, if you even created a workflow there, just that contact workflow, and you click on the enrollment criteria there, like you'll see that marketing email is an option. So let's say
page view,
or if even if so it could be they viewed a page, or the marketing email filter there. If you go back a step, if you see the marketing email option there, so like you might have hundreds of marketing emails that you've sent. So if you choose one of them, you can see that there's different interactions people can have with those marketing emails. So you can actually chain all of this together and have quite a complex and/or logic to say they viewed the pricing page, they've opened this email, their name is Jack, and they live in Ireland. So you get very, very specific. But yeah, that's a really good question.
I think one of the things that Jack just touched on that I think is really the power of Operations Hub is that you can use all of the standard declarative automations, list rules, all of those filters in HubSpot to define when you want that action to run. And so what the value here is you can work with developers or an external vendor or one of the product folks on your team to really write that JavaScript that says, do this thing to a contact. And then you as a marketer or an operations person can put that inside of workflows that you're building and decide when you want to run it without necessarily needing to do all of the logic on the code side, which I think is a huge value add for Operations Hub, because it lets folks who are non-developers, non-technical get tons and tons of value out of code, which is why I think putting this into the workflows tool is so powerful from a product perspective. One from Juan, and good to see you, Juan, which is, could you use the custom code to copy the last converting campaign value to a custom field in order to have a historical view of all campaigns they interacted with? Yes, you could do that. One way to take that even further is to generate a custom object. So something we've done, and I know that some of the folks that work with you on our side would be delighted to chat about this, is actually creating a custom coded action so that every time either that last converting campaign is changing or you're getting a new historical marketing event, you can generate a custom object, copy all the information from that into that object, and then you have a history of all of the events that you care about over time on that contact record. You could append a field, you could update a value as well, but we've seen some cool stuff with the new reporting updates where you can report on those custom objects, and so putting information into different records is a good way to kind of manage some of that as well. But yes, you could absolutely do that. And then I think I scrolled through some of my answer lives. Yeah, please go, Kyle. Yeah. I'll scroll through some more of these.
Kat is asking if something like Jack's referral program could be built without Operations Hub.
Truthfully, it could. And in fact, before Operations Hub existed, there was a way to do it, but it still involved well, you could do it within HubSpot to a certain extent, but then you were looking at a third party like Zapier to handle some of the lookup logic. While we're talking, I'll find a video because I do have a video where I run through basically what I showed you before Operations Hub even existed. So it is possible to an extent, but Operations Hub can take it to the next level.
And I was just going to say, I mean, if you head over to our app marketplace and just search for referrals, we have multiple integrations with companies that's what they do, right? Referral things, and then you integrate with HubSpot and you can do it. But to build it in this slick, straightforward way Jack just showed, you're definitely going to need Operations Hub or some third-party system. To hack it together without one of those things, I think would be pretty tricky.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. I have one other one, and then there's one or two that Jack, you might be more equipped to speak to on like rate limiting or some of these other items as well. But I have one from Daniel, which is, can we automate a WordPress user membership approval for customers or partners based on HubSpot data while putting other types of contacts into a moderation process? I personally am not ultra familiar with the WordPress user membership APIs and how robust they are. But what I will say is if there is a way for an API to interact with WordPress and sort of update a user record and change its membership status, the answer should be yes. So you would use a contact workflow based off of either a list membership or whatever actions you're sort of determining whether or not you want someone to automatically get added or whether you want them to go into a moderation process. And you could use a coded action to go to WordPress, set that person as approved for a user membership or set that person as they're able to have access. And then other ones you could add to a list that's like requires manual approval. And then in that list in HubSpot, you could just go through that list and then update another property, which says, hey, no, we're going to approve this or we're going to deny it. And then you could have the person being manually marked as approved also update them inside of WordPress as well. Shameless plug for CMS Hub Enterprise, which is if you were on CMS Hub Enterprise and you had CMS memberships, you could do all of that entirely natively in HubSpot. But with Operations Hub, I believe you could interact with the WordPress side. But again, I don't personally have tons of familiarity with the WordPress APIs, but if that is exposed, that workflow should totally be buildable and is a great Operations Hub use case.
Should I maybe take I think it was from Dave Maxwell, who was just talking a little bit about the like performance limitations and like yeah. So it's a great question, and I mean, like anything, there obviously is things to factor in here. So I think the first thing to keep in mind is that the custom actions that we're looking at here, the logic within those actions, they have to finish running within 20 seconds. So if it takes longer than 20 seconds, it will result in an error. Another thing to keep in mind is that it can only use up to 128 megs of memory. So that's worth considering as well. So if you've got if you've got if you've got a huge amount of data, or you're running incredibly complex operations that are likely going to take a couple of minutes, that will create issues for you. So to keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that right now, the only forms of authentication that we support through the custom coded actions are using API keys. So OAuth is not yet supported. So depending on the third parties that you're using or the systems you're integrating with, you may or may not come up against issues there. HubSpot, for instance, has certain endpoints that will only that require OAuth exclusively, whilst most of them will just support using an API key. Other things too, you've always got to factor in the usage limits of the platforms you're using. So any requests you make to the HubSpot API are going to be counted towards your portal's API usage. So depending on the plan that you're on, you're likely going to have about 500,000 calls a day, 10 calls a second. But yeah, if you go over that limit, you're going to get an error back saying that your daily limit has been maxed. So I would keep that in mind. The other thing as well, just on the topic of debugging, it's probably hard without a visual to show you this, but when you are looking at those custom coded actions, or in fact, would it be okay very quickly if I shared my screen just to show this?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a separate question about debugging. I was actually
going
to push you in that direction. Like, while you're talking, could you talk about debugging? So perfect. Yeah, share your screen by all means.
Yeah. So let me show you here. So I'll share my screen, and we should in a moment. Once this opens up for me, you should hopefully in a moment see my my workflow tool again. On a slightly larger screen, so apologies if it's a little bit hard to see, but what I wanted to show you here is that if I go to, I'll go to an action I was building out last night actually, and I was running into a couple of issues and I need to figure out how to get around that. So I go in here, and what I was doing actually was, Connor, not too dissimilar to your out of the box solution here, where you can check if you can associate records.
Yeah.
So basically the use case here was, a company that I was working with, they have got people, their customers don't necessarily have business email addresses, and they don't always have websites either. So they would be converting on their website forms using their first and last name, their Gmail address, and they would be providing a company name, let's say. And that was resulting in some issues because there was no way to link them to the respective companies. Now, admittedly, Connor, your solution does a great job of doing that. There was a couple of other parameters here that forced me to kind of look at this, but what I wanted to show you this for was I ran into a lot of issues, in short, before I got this working, and there was a lot of debugging that had to happen. So you'll see here within the history tab of the workflow, and I apologize if this is quite if this is hard to see, but this is basically where I've got a history of all of the tests that I've done. Now, what I typically do when I'm doing this thing is I'll create a test contact or a test record, and I will enroll that into the workflow to see what my custom code is actually doing. And you can see that in most instances, the custom code was successfully executed. I'm pretty sure if we go back in time, I've got a few errors as well. Okay, I don't in this case, but there could also be situations where the custom code action just simply doesn't run, and that would be surfaced. Now, if I look at these actions, I'm going to go back in time a bit when I had a few more issues here, this one. If I click on the event details and zoom out a bit, you'll actually see we've got some details relating to this event. So we've obviously got the contact that we were trying this against. We've got the time at which this has occurred. We've got the event itself was successful. The code actually did run, but there was some sort of error in one of the responses we got back from whatever API I was using in this instance. And this is visible within the logs. So you can kind of see I'm actually using a lot of console.logs within the actual code itself to ensure that I'm capturing the data that's being input, and I can begin to follow that trail through. But you'll actually see in this case, I think it was, what was this error? This came back from HubSpot. I think it was something to do with, I wasn't correctly calling our search API or something like that. But in essence, what I'm trying to show you here is that this log function will surface a lot of that information, and it's a good place to look because that's 9 times out of 10, that's where you want to start when you're debugging all of this. So using a combination of your console.logs and also referencing this history afterwards will shed a lot of insight into what's working and what's not working. And at least it's worked for me anyway, and that's how I'd approach it.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this history tab. Again, just for anyone who missed it, Jack, can you click on actions real quick?
Yep, sure
So
thing.
this is the normal the workflow canvas you're used to working on. There's a histories tab up there at the top, and you can see every record that's been run through. And if the custom code failed, you'll see that here, and you can dig in and see what happened. If it succeeded but it didn't do what you were expecting it to, you can come in, you can look at those console logs, and as you build your code, make sure you're collecting those things and writing that in, and then they'll all be here, and you can access them and see them. So this is I think your key place to be looking when it comes to debugging stuff. Real quick, just to finish John's questions here, because he's the one who asked about debugging. Any plans on Python support?
So yes is the short answer there. That will be the next language that we're going to be supporting. I don't have a timeline, but it is absolutely the next one that's coming.
Yeah. So John also asked, not to be too greedy, but do we have anything we're excited about? I think that one we're pretty excited about. You'll see various updates coming as all of these things mature. But that's the only one I know of specifically. Connor, did you have a couple you want to jump in on?
I had a couple, yeah, I wanted to speak to. So Johan asked, if I trigger a workflow when a contact books a meeting, can I access to the meeting info so I can change the meeting owner? So I can speak to how you would do this. Meeting ownership can sometimes be odd, so I'm not 100% sure. So I don't want to tell you like, yes, you can absolutely update the meeting owner, but you could do this. So the way that you would do this is if you used a contact enrollment trigger, there is a meeting, or there's like a last meeting booked in meetings tool enrollment criteria that you could use. So you could use sort of like the meeting, so date of last meeting booked in meetings tool is less than today, or you could use sort of other enrollment, or when this last change of the campaign changed. And then your custom coded action would hit the engagement API. So HubSpot has this engagement API, and you could, I think what you'd want to do here is you want to do a get engagement. So you'd want to go pull the engagements that are in here, find the engagement you're looking for. And then there's also an update engagement API as well. So if you guys hit this, you could update it. What I don't know and couldn't tell you is like, it looks like there is an owner ID in here. But what I'm not sure is if you change an owner on an engagement, if that gets reflected as well. I haven't personally done that, but that should be possible as long as the actual API supports that update. And that's sort of how you would trigger that. I had another one on here, which I thought was a really, really cool example that I will try to do my best to speak to. I may need to ask Jack for his opinion as well, and we'll come up with something here. So this is from John. So John asks that he wants to target an automated email notification to contacts whenever a new store opens within the contact's geographic area. So they said they have the stores in HubDB with their latitude and longitude, as well as zip code. And then they have the zip code for contacts. So would it make sense to use a code to call something like the Google Maps API and get lists of contacts or stores in the geofence, which I thought was a really, really cool use case. My first thought there is if you had the stores as an object and you had the stores, so sort of where my head goes for this is you essentially have each store as an object, and then you have a workflow that runs on create of that store. And then what you would do here is you could go and find, or you could get contacts that match something with this store, or match that geofence, and update a property. And then you could enroll or associate contacts to that store, and then email the contacts that are associated to that individual store, is kind of like where my head goes. But you could hit the Google Maps API and get like a list of zip codes. I think the implementation here gets a little complicated for some of the timeouts that Jack talked about, where like you may not want to go query all the contacts in your database in a coded action. So you may want to sort of like instead enroll contacts and then ping your stores object or ping your HubDB to find out whether they match certain zip codes, which could be a good solution. Do you have any thoughts on that one, Jack?
I mean, I'd echo what you say around maybe looking at custom objects to represent the store. The reason I'd probably say that is because with HubDB, it's obviously you can have your listings and the various columns and all of that row data, but there isn't actually a way to trigger workflows using HubDB data. It's siloed in that sense. It's only pertaining to the records within the CRM. So using a store object is worth considering. I'd probably do some testing to make sure that you're not going to run into that 20-second runtime issue, or using the maximum amount of allocated memory depending on how large the data is. Again, it could get a little bit more complex when you throw in Latin longs and where people are in the world, but something like that potentially could be possible, but would probably need to be fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely some solutioning. Lists API is also something to look into, which is you could, if you sort of know like the zip codes and the properties, you could hit the lists API and build a dynamic list for those properties and sort of like have it aggregate people into it, which could be interesting. But the reason I sort of picked this question was less that we'll be able to figure out the answer in a couple minutes, and more that those are the types of things that I think Operations Hub makes possible. So if you're running into complex use cases of automation where we want to leverage another API, leverage another system, have relationships between all these records, really, really good opportunity to say, can Operations Hub solve this problem? And it's likely, even though you'll need some engineering to figure out what the best way to build it is.
One thing that just sprung to mind, and mentioning this was a good call, because I mean, one thing you could do is, and this is very high level, but just to put it out there, is let's say that you have a workflow that runs based on contacts being in the specific list, or based on their lat and long being known, let's say. So we know where they are. That workflow runs. What we can then do is we say, right, well, we know Jack's lat and long or which city he's in. Let's query HubDB to see if there's a store that is open. And if there is, we'll send an email, or if there isn't, we'll just say, well, sorry, the store is still closed. So you could technically do it. I mean, I'm making a lot of assumptions on my part, admittedly, as well. I would rather test this, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some engineering involved and fine tuning to get that working.
I actually love the idea, and something that we've done a bunch of times, and we talk about in our Operations Hub playbook, which I think will be in the follow-up to this, but you can get it on our site or somewhere else. But basically is yo-yoing between workflows. So we've done things where you essentially build like a cron job almost inside of HubSpot by shuffling people between two different workflows. So saying it's like, update this property to yes, that enrolls them in a workflow, wait an hour, do something, and then update them to no, and then kick it back and run code in between them. And I think to Jack's point, if you had something where if you wanted to have that happen every week, or on a specific day, you choose like a date-based workflow, which is on the first of the month, we're going to go find out, are there new stores open? And if you had all of those stores in a separate system, and you could run that coded action for each contact that runs through that workflow, that could be actually a really good solution to Jack's point, because instead of being driven by the store, you'd have it be driven by the contact records, and the contact records checking, does this contact have a store that has opened near it? And then using a contact-based workflow that says like update a property on that contact. And then with that contact-based workflow saying this person has a store, here's the store information, send them an automated email with all of that store information, could be a really interesting solution as well. Feel free to reach out to me directly too. I'd love to talk about that one. That sounds like a very, very cool use case to work on. I have one other one that was on here. Oh, sorry, go for it, Kyle. I'm so sorry.
Jumping in here, since we're at about 10 minutes to go, we are going to continue. Oh, don't worry, I'm not cutting us off here. We've got some more questions in here, and we'll get to as many as we can in the 10 minutes we have left. But we do want to launch a quick poll just to get a check from the 56 of you who are here. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'd love to get some feedback from you. Is this helpful? Is it extremely helpful? Is it not at all helpful? If you could just give us a little insight about the format of this. This is still very much an experiment. We're trying to figure out the best way to educate people about custom code. These webinars are the best thing we've thought of so far, but this is just the second one we've done. So looking like we're ranking pretty well here. I'll leave it open for 30 seconds, so just 3 more seconds. Cool, we'll end the poll. Sure, we'll share those results. You all are very generous. Thank you so much. I'm glad this is valuable to you. Because it's valuable, now that Connor has had a chance to catch his breath, I'll just kick it back over to him.
I have one more that I thought would be like a good closeout one from Gus. If we're looking to close one out, if we're not looking to close out, then I can either take another different question or bounce it back to you.
We're very we're down to just the last few here.
Cool.
Jack, just real quick, do you happen to know, is there a way to avoid the HubSpot API 10-second call rate limit?
There isn't, basically, is the short.
Okay.
Yeah, there isn't a way around that.
That's what I thought, but I didn't want to guess that. So Antoine, if you're still here, there you go. And then Daniel, partner program within HubSpot. I've been asked this about a couple of times, Jack. I don't know if you have a slam dunk answer for this. It is tricky to set up. I've not found a great solution for it. I haven't tried it since Operations Hub launched, but I don't know if Operations Hub helps exactly.
Yeah, interestingly, this does come up as well, and admittedly, it is slightly different to a referral program, obviously, albeit your partners may be referring business. I have actually worked with people, and actually, I might take note of this and maybe use it to create some content around, because I have created partner programs within HubSpot using custom objects. So your partners are your custom objects, and those partners then are linked to deals which reside in a partner pipeline or a channel pipeline that are separate to your direct deals that are coming in from other avenues. And then you're able to report on, how much revenue partner A, B, or C has brought in. It's possible with custom objects standalone. I think Operations Hub would also add some interesting flavor into the mix, because it would allow you then to start, as new business comes through, looking for, maybe your partners do have some sort of code or unique identifier, whatever the case may be, and you can kind of begin to connect the dots a bit more. But yeah, there's ways to do it. But we'd probably be talking for another hour if we.
Yeah, I knew that was not a simple one. So Jack, if you do create some content on that, share it with me. I will share it with everyone. I get asked this from time to time, and I just kind of twiddle my thumbs and change the subject, because I don't really. It's pretty complex. Yeah, Connor, now take us home.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had one from
all
Gus.
the questions today.
I had one from Gus, which was, are there any rules of thumb for when to look at custom coded workflows versus just using the HubSpot API and the partnering app API on the other system you're trying to communicate with? So my big picture elements here are really to think about this from a perspective of if you think about HubSpot as a tool that has APIs and your other system has APIs, without something like an Operations Hub, you don't have a way to get those to talk to each other. You need something in the middle. So that was sort of like a lot of different middleware tools or ETL tools or things like Tray or Celigo or some of these other products that are out there that would allow you to sort of like query those two systems and move information across. And I think the amazing part with Operations Hub is that you can have that code run inside of HubSpot without adding another tool, without sort of expanding what your overall tech stack looks like and sort of adding all these additional products. And instead, you can have something fire on the HubSpot side, run a coded action, update something in another system or fetch something in another system, and have those two start talking to each other. And so the example that I gave on another webinar that was a little less tactical was like Operations Hub allows you to sort of pull a cable out of HubSpot and plug it into something else. And so I think where the rule of thumb really when I think about this is, are you trying to update something in another system, and does that system have an API, and can you make that update triggered by something in HubSpot? Is like perfect Operations Hub use case of when you want to maybe connect to something else, or if you're trying to build an automation flow that something natively on the HubSpot workflow doesn't support. Both of those are really good use cases to think, oh, interesting, like could Operations Hub solve this problem for me? And I think the answer a lot of the time is yes, which is really exciting and one of the best parts of some of the custom code as well.
Awesome. Jack and Connor, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions coming through, so I think we got them. Before we sign off, Jack, Connor, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you if they have more questions?
If people want to just connect with me on LinkedIn,
dropped his email.
Yep. If people just want to connect with me on LinkedIn, Jack Coldrick is my name. So please feel free to connect. I try to be quite active on LinkedIn, so I share content on a weekly basis that would kind of touch on these types of things. So be lovely to connect and maybe drop me a message and we can get talking. I'd love to hear from you.
Likewise, on my end, feel free to reach out to me and connect on LinkedIn. We share a bunch of content about this. I usually go through all the LinkedIn stuff in the morning. I'll try to look at some stuff this afternoon for anyone who may have hit me up as well. I also put my email in here. Feel free to email me directly. Would love to talk about your use case, or if you're interested in building things like this. We're also hiring. Really, if you have any interest in this, I'm probably interested in talking to you. So shoot me a note, and would love to hear what you guys are working on or wanting to build.
Awesome. I am also all over LinkedIn. I share much less technically advanced content than these two guys. So if you want HubSpot Lite, that's me. I'll teach you some like high level tips and tricks there. Jack, can we get a link to your GitHub?
Yeah.
A couple people have asked for that, and I keep forgetting.
Yeah, I'll do that right now, actually. Yep. So I'll just drop it into the chat there. There we go.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
So there's that. And yeah, I mean, we got 5 minutes left, but you're all free to sign off if you've gotten everything you came for. If you have any last minute questions or thoughts or suggestions or requests, feel free to kick them our way. But thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We hope it was helpful. And enjoy your Wednesday.
Great. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, y'all.